Forward to the cloud. Good morning and welcome to the April 30th ad hoc on the community policing policy. It is 10 a.m. We're going to get started. Mr. Dorado, will you please take it away?
Okay, I went through I listened to the meeting, and Jesse, you did such a good job. I just assume you keep the momentum going and continue, and I'll just take a panelist role. But you did a really good job, and certainly, you obviously you got the familiarity, but you've got the full familiarity with the going through it the last meeting. So I would suggest go ahead and continue. I was just real happy with the way you handled it. So I would suggest you just continue.
Sounds good.
Have momentum going, keep it going.
All right. I think we left off around tenure. We had finished up with the trainings and topics. And so instead of having both versions side by side, this is just the most recent edit that you all have a copy of. And I think we should just go through this copy because it's a lot easier to read anyhow than the markup that we have at this point. Section 8, which is tenure. We did have a lot of discussion about this particular section. CRO members must commit to at least 3 years. Newly appointed members are expected and encouraged to serve at least 5 years in the position.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I heard that.
Excuse me, Jesse. That was Mike Nesperos. He said he didn't get a link.
I will send it to him now.
Great.
And by the way, I sent a text message to Rudy telling him that the meeting is starting.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I talked to him earlier and let him know.
Just give me 1 second.
I just want to quickly say something while we're waiting. I'm at a funeral, so I'm gonna have to leave at 10:30. Just
Omar, okay. Sorry for your loss.
I sent Mike the link. Hopefully he will join us soon. Give it about 5 minutes. If he hasn't, I'll shoot some more. Let's keep going. Transfers into and out of any CRO unit are governed by OPD GTO B-04, personnel assignment, selection process, and transfers. You'll see that there is a reference note right there, and that goes to down here, which links to the specific document. So people, if they're looking at it on their computer, can just click on that document and it will take them to the Oakland website, which gives the has all of the policies and procedures for the Oakland Police Department so that they can look specifically at those policies and what they say. Comments about section 8?
Looks good.
We could probably take out the word expected, but I don't think it saves us any space.
Okay. You can do encourage. Well, maybe expected instead of encouraged.
Yeah. Take out the encouraged.
Okay. Let's track change, sorry. Okay. All right. Not hearing anything else, move on to, I see that Commissioner Howell has joined. I've promoted him. Moving on to section 9, evaluation. So evaluation is, let's see. There was discussion about this. We know that OPD has its own internal evaluation system and its protocols, depending on number of years, who's your supervisor, what exactly you are being evaluated on. And so we don't want to disturb that necessarily. So that's why this first section is here. Performance reviews and appraisals of CROs will be conducted on a regular basis as dictated in DGO B06, performance appraisal, the link being below. But we do want sergeants and supervisors to know how the community feels and their input about the CROs that are working with the community as part of that evaluation. So as part of that evaluation, the evaluating supervisor will also consider, if available, community input regarding subject members and neighborhood council surveys. Oh, that's poorly worded. It should be community input and neighborhood council surveys regarding subject members, so that it's clear where the information is coming from and to whom it is for. Mr. Lyles.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I see in the policy it had DGO. I'm assuming that's Department of General Orders.
Yes.
I know that. I did 30 years. I don't know if the lay citizen would know that. So if it doesn't take up too much space, couldn't we just write Department of General Orders? Or are we going to have a supplement we add to it with all of these acronyms so everyone can know what those acronyms mean?
Here's what I'll do. Since I'm already making a footnote here, I'll write out DGO at the bottom down here.
Okay. Thank you.
That way the space is already accounted for. Good note. All right. Community input and okay. If supervisors consider community input or neighborhood council surveys, supervisors should obtain as much contextual and background information as possible and permit the CRO member to respond if necessary. This responded specifically to the concern that it may just be the one person who has a complaint about every CRO member, or it's that their particular issue is not being handled, although the CRO is doing the best job of handling the larger community issues. And so this allows, I guess, making sure that any sort of complaint or commendation is fully understood and direct supervisors to try to get as much information and not just take it at its face value. Both helping our CRO members out, but also learning the depth of any problem that if there is one. Thoughts?
Sounds good.
I have, so it sounds, I'm sorry, Mariano. It sounds like this is, that this part of the evaluation by community is a consideration and not something that's going to happen all the time. And I'm just wondering whether we can, word it where it's strongly urged that this happen more than not, regardless whether we think that, the evaluation process is going to, harvest, negativity. Eventually, hopefully, because of this process, we'll get to the point where, it's an even evaluation, both where, praise or even type of evaluation. So I'm just, the wording here just seems like, wow, it might happen and it might not happen. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I'm just wondering if we can be a little bit stronger where, this policy will, urge an evaluation by community. to happen.
The Reggie?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the wording we are not using in here, but what I heard, the word complaint. When I hear the word complaint, I automatically go to the regulated citizen complaint. And we don't want to stop any citizen from making any complaint. But are we talking about complaints against a CRO here? If so, the union probably would say, that we have a policy that deals with complaints. So complaints have to go through internal affairs, and that's well regulated. So I'm wondering if we should say that these are concerns or opinions of the community, and then maybe add if someone has a complaint against a CRO, they're advised to go to internal affairs and go through that process. In other words, if I had a complaint, a legitimate complaint against a CRO, and I mention it in this process in the evaluation, and thereby my complaint doesn't go through the well-regulated complaint process, is the department avoiding or watering down my sentiments and avoiding taking my complaint seriously? This seems to gets convoluted to me here. And I know it's yeah.
Yeah, I would defer to Lieutenant Fable, but my recollection is that sergeants can handle these type of complaints. And if they don't feel that they can handle it, then they can move it up the channel and ultimately end up at internal affairs. But not everything has to go to internal affairs to start with.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging that. I'm not saying I'm, sifting for complaints to go to internal affairs. I just don't want anyone who has a complaint not to be informed that they have a right to go to internal affairs, if that's making any kind of sense.
I think what Jesse added there pretty much covers that, Reggie. The thing going to Mariano's point, I think that it's clear that it says will consider. So there's no waffling there. They will consider. The only qualification we may want to put on that is will consider heavily or seriously, something along those lines that just make it clear that they're not only will there be consideration of community input, but that there'll be a high level of consideration. So we may want to qualify that with an appropriate word.
Omar?
I see this addition down here: complaints against CRO will be handled through standard complaint procedures laid out in Department of General Order, whatever it is. I'm comfortable with that.
Mr. Farmer?
Hi, I kind of just had a question before I had to run. But just on this point, Commissioner Shea, thank you for incorporating the points about the NSA. I did see that the first 2 of the 5 objectives were in there. Whether or not the other 3 get in there, I'm going to leave that up to you all, your best judgment. But on this topic, since this is being discussed, I felt like the 3rd objective of Task 47 also discusses that OPD shall, not like with soft language, it says that they shall develop mechanisms to measure its community policing and problem solving activities. So I was thinking that maybe, if that if you feel like that is related to the, points being made about how to measure CROs, their, problem solving activities here, that maybe that could be used to make this language stronger in this instance. That's all.
Ariana?
Yeah, so thank you for that, Omar. So I'm thinking that on that sentence, as part of the evaluating supervisor shall review all collected and documented evaluations and input of said members. Because that will be referring to everything that has been inputted throughout the process, throughout the year, throughout that period. And so we are strongly saying that they shall review what's already documented. How about that?
Say that one more time.
So it would be the evaluating supervisor shall review all collected and documented evaluations and input of said members.
Who's doing the reviews and the documents
The-
that you mentioned there?
The supervisor.
They're collecting it. Who's conducting the evaluation?
Oh, I thought the supervisor would be doing that.
So
Well,
the
yeah, go
reason
ahead.
why is so what I have here is, as part of that evaluation, the evaluating supervisor shall collect and consider community input and neighborhood council surveys regarding subject members, which is a directive to the department that they must collect that information from community members and from neighborhood councils separately about those subject members to consider in their performance evaluation, so that those performance evaluations are not just based on the tasks that are completed, SARA projects, but also that person's customer service features, abilities, and their ability to interface with the community.
So I think it sounds like the key word that to strengthen it probably need to replace consider with something a little more stronger. Because consider is kind of like, okay, yeah, I considered it, and then move on. So maybe that might be the linchpin. Make that a stronger word instead of consider. Would be a stronger word to actually, incorporate or really review it for submission to the rest of the report, or for the evaluation.
How about determine the value of community input?
Determine the value.
Shall collect, analyze, and determine the value of the community input and neighborhood council survey regarding subject members. So they got to collect the information, they got to analyze it, and they got to make a decision about it.
I have to step away for just a second and I'll come back to that. Keep talking.
I think the supervisor ought to be the one who gathers the information and should be the one who analyzes the appropriateness of the information and quality of it, and then come to a decision about if their employee that works for them is towing the mark or not. And
Okay,
then,
that's the wording right there. That's the wording. Yeah, make the decision as to what is the employee doing. Yeah, so it has to, so there's a decision and an application for the decision, not just a decision,
Right.
but an application. So how you evaluated, you decided, and what's the application of the decision?
right, collect it, evaluate it, and determine. And then
Applied. How's it going to be applied?
yeah, an application. Yeah, I guess you're right.
How will said decision be applied to the outcome that we're all looking for, which is community empowerment, community engagement?
Well, if I'm the
Yeah, so how will-
supervisor, if I'm doing all of that, I have to sign my name to it. So vicariously, I'm responsible. So I want my employees to know
Yeah.
that Sister so-and-so or Mrs. so-and-so or Senora so-and-so said this and that, and I've determined that what's happening what they're telling me has weight. And, you know, I think you need to find another another assignment, or we're going to remove you, or you've crossed the line so far that I'm turning this into a personnel complaint.
Or
Yeah, so
engage
that
in
falls
some
under-
remediation or training to assist the CRO in changing his or her behavior that led to the variety of feedback.
Yeah, I think that's one of the outcomes also.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, you got to give them a chance to correct their behavior. You got to give them a chance. Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Sorry about stepping away. Where did we end up?
So we got collect, review, evaluate, and then the new one was decide. And then how will that decision be applied to whatever, you know, the overall push for community engagement, policing, and empowerment, you know? So how's the application of whatever was collected, evaluated, and decided on, how will it be applied?
I think you could take
Yeah,
out, I would take
go
out and put and applied, evaluate and applied, and eliminate the consider.
Yeah, that's because that word wasn't strong enough. Yeah, it just makes it a little too flimsy, but this way it's structured, it's really structured tight, and then there's going to be an outcome in the sense of the application. What happened? And we can trace it all the way back. Data was collected, data was evaluated, reviewed, whatever, and then the decision was made on the data, and here's the application of the decision. And does it support community empowerment, community policing, and you know, the main mission?
I guess Brother Say is a little confused here. I would eliminate and evaluate and put and applied, comma, collect, review, evaluate, and apply the information, apply the decision about the community input. A decision about the
Like
community.
review, evaluate, and apply.
And make sure that because I think it would help to say like applied, you know, to the mission, which is, you know, applied in a way that reinforces community empowerment, or, you know, community policing, community empowerment, community engagement.
And maybe that comes after the subject members part, where it's shall collect, review, evaluate, and apply community input and neighborhood council services regarding subject members, so that the outcome leads to increased, you know, exactly what you had said. Something like that.
There we go. Yeah, that sounds good.
What would you suggest putting in there, Creighton?
Let me think about that.
Community input and neighborhood survey regarding subject matter. So it meets departmental goals. So it meets departmental mission and goals.
Yeah, community empowerment goals. We want to be specific because this is an ad hoc on community policing, and one of the things we're looking for is community empowerment.
Okay.
So yeah, so community policing, community power. So it's really specific as to the mission of this policy, which is to increase or develop the relationships with the community, strengthen them, and all the interactions go to community empowerment. So that the community can have a say so. Yeah, so the community has a say so in what's happening to their members, you know, and the, you know, the CROs, how they're engaging with the community, and just, you know, so everybody kind of just sees and works together to make everything effective, policing effective in these communities, where all stakeholders feel like, okay, yeah, I had some input, I'm getting the results I like, and everybody, you know, is working together to support everybody's outcomes.
Or Jesse, maybe even including in there like, you know, resolutions as well, like in that comment that you just included. Because I'm just thinking ahead to the revision process for the resolution 9597325.
Let's see. And I talk about collect, review, evaluate, and apply community input and neighborhood surveys regarding subject members. To you want them to do that in order to determine whether you want to determine whether or not the officer is effective in implementing or in meeting the community empowerment goals of the various measures. So you're basically making an evaluation of whether or not this officer is doing his or her part to empower the community.
Perfect.
So I'm trying to see how best to say it, but that's the reason you want to collect that. You want to try to make some assessment, some kind of assessment, or maybe collect, review, evaluate, and apply community input and neighborhood council surveys to assess whether the CRO is meeting.
Aligned. If he's aligned.
There you go. Is in line or aligned with the purpose of this of document.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
aligned. Yep.
Okay. Let's see if I hit this. Performance reviews and appraisals of CROs will be conducted on a regular basis as dictated in DGO B06 performance appraisal. Supervisors shall also evaluate whether CRO performance is meeting, aligned, I'll figure out the right word, with community empowerment goals outlined, probably say in line or outlined with, and I will find a source document, whether that's resolution 79235, measure Y, measure Z, or some document, OPD document.
Why can't it, excuse me, why can't we just say community empowerment goals of this policy or this directive?
Yeah.
Yes, we could. I don't remember if we put it up top or not. That's
It is. It's in section A.
Thank you.
Purpose.
Yeah. So and yeah, this whole policy is about community empowerment. How about just community empowerment goals of this directive?
Section.
Can I?
I like that.
Community empowerment goals outlined in section 2A. I highlighted it and I'll find the right section of this policy. As part of that evaluation, I'll go back to this. As part of that evaluation, the evaluating supervisor shall collect, review, evaluate, and apply community input and neighborhood council surveys regarding subject members. Apply sounds weird to me. That's why I'm scratching my head.
Yeah, you really can't apply.
I thought it should be determined. I want him to come to a decision.
Collect, review, evaluate. Mike?
Yeah, I was, I would like to see the community input on the evaluation as included in the evaluation. Here, as I read it, it isn't necessarily included. It's the evaluator reacting to it without necessarily, including what these criticisms are. And I think for the benefit of the officer and his supervisors later on down the road, it would be good to see exactly what it was that was considered, evaluated, and determined. And unless we put in that it's included in the evaluation, that won't be the case.
That'd be a separate sentence.
Yeah, I think the sentence getting very long.
Make that a separate sentence. That community input must be included in all evaluations.
I think this paragraph says that.
Okay, if you think so.
But not, I mean, to Reggie's point about how it needs to be part of every evaluation for a CRO. As part of this, shall collect and incorporate community input.
Include, I think you want exactly what they said, what the exact words were. I would, if I was the supervisor down the road and see, how it was the supervisor reacted to it. So that way you're evaluating, you can evaluate the supervisor as well as the CRO.
Well, then incorporate would be the right word, huh?
Or collect and include. And then start a new sentence with such data will be reviewed, evaluated, and da.
If you want the citizen complaint or concern added to this evaluation, you better say that. Otherwise, you're going to get what the sergeant thought the person meant.
Exactly.
If you want to add that, you want what the sergeant thought the person making the concern meant and evaluated and made a decision about. But if you want a distinctive the complaint in her words or his words, you ought to say that. And that's why I said maybe a separate sentence that the citizen with concern shall be included in this in this evaluation.
Yeah.
What kind of wording would you suggest, Reggie?
I would use the word shall. I would say that if that's what we want in, and I would say all community input shall be included in the evaluation.
Perfect.
And I'm asking, is these concerns, do they come like in the form of, I'm assuming, a letter, or is there in this evaluation, is there a form that the department hands out to the community and say, give us your input online or in a document? But if a citizen writes a letter to the sergeant I'm thinking that letter ought to be included in this.
Well, that's what you mean by all community input.
Yes.
I think we'll leave how OPD collects the information up to OPD. I think that any written document is likely to be, should be collected. I agree with that.
Well, they're under a mandate to do it, collect and review. So whatever kind of form they need to develop to do that, it's clear they shall do it.
And Jesse, just before you put in all community input, can we, instead of, before those few words before that, instead of evaluation of CRO members, can we just say CROs?
Does this look good?
That looks good. Looks better.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that that's a mandate. And it gives the CRO the opportunity to respond as well. Is Captain Pebble still with us? Acting Captain Pebble? If he is, I'd like to hear from him how he feels about this.
Hey, Mr. Dorado. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
So with regard to the capturing of information, so we actually have a standardized system that tracks our officer's profile. It's called Vision. All letters of appreciation go in there. All complaints obviously go through the complaint process. So we already have a formalized system to capture that data. But we also have a policy regarding surveys in that basically only the chief of police can allow a formal OPD survey to be conducted. I'm sure there's some legal reasons behind that, but we're not allowed to take like direct surveys from the community. But we certainly accept all letters of appreciation. So if a community, wants to send in, their opinion unsolicited to the sergeant, that is always welcome.
Can I ask, so let's take it from the survey question. Let's say that your neighborhood service coordinator creates a survey, that person is not an OPD, for neighborhood council members to fill out and then send to OPD. Would OPD accept that survey since it's not initiated by OPD?
I mean, I think that's a tricky, it's kind of trying to be tricky. I mean, we always accept all information, right? But would it be reasonable to use in a peer evaluation? That's up to debate.
So what are these neighborhood council surveys that we're referring to? Who conducts them? Are they conducted on any kind of regular basis? Who knows what they actually are? We're telling OPD to consider these neighborhood council surveys.
It's great in here still.
It's not something, doing this for 25 years, they're few and far between. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw a neighborhood council survey. And I'm, assuming that was a neighborhood council initiated survey. And I can't think of one that, I'm sure there's, in 25 years, there's been one, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Again, they're few and far between if there are any.
I would suggest that we take out the reference to neighborhood council surveys. We have community input, which can come in any form. But I think that we should take out the reference to neighborhood council surveys both times we use it in here. So it says evaluating supervisor shall collect, review, and incorporate community input. in their evaluation of CROs. And then if supervisors consider community input, they shall obtain contextual background information.
You know, Brenda, I'd still like to see a neighborhood council in there.
Okay.
Certainly the surveys, I think it can be eliminated. But what I'd like to see is neighborhood council and community input, both in that sentence and also in the following sentence.
Okay.
So it's clear that they're expecting, it's clear that there's going to be input from the neighborhood councils.
Okay. That change then that Jesse's doing now takes care of it.
While Commissioner Shea's doing that, I would just like to just ask Officer Fable, maybe at some future time, if you can maybe provide us the reasoning or the actual document that states that only the chief can approve surveys. I'd be interested, so just so that this ad hoc committee can be clear, as well as the community in general. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll reach out to our policy and publications unit. But I will say, Your Honor, I think nailed it. If we just keep it simple, don't say the word survey, the supervisor will always consider all input from the community. We actually encourage it.
Captain Fellow, have you ever seen a neighborhood council survey?
No, sir. In my 13 years, I've never seen one.
Yeah.
Okay, how are we on this?
I think we've hit it.
Okay, I'll fill out the highlighted portions or make sure that they are accurate. Thank you. All right, community meetings. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll very quickly. A little bit longer, but the shortest section. Let's see. So community meetings are an opportunity for the department to interact with the community outside of its law enforcement duties. By attending such meetings, the department strengthens its commitment to local communities. This third sentence is directly from the NSA. Thus, the department must host at least one community meeting per quarter in each patrol service area. Each patrol supervisor and officer assigned to a regular beat or geographic area of the city of Oakland must attend a minimum of one community meeting per quarter in the area to which they are regularly assigned. So this comes from task, I think it's 27 or 47. Mr. Farmer's not here, but he was the one who directed our attention towards it. Appropriate personnel attend and document attendance at community meetings with public appearances in accordance with the provisions of DGO B7, public appearances. There's a reference to that. And this goes into great detail about what each person does, not just CROs, each member does if they are to ever go to a public appearance. So attendance at community meetings, BFO, personnel. Sorry, I'll fill that out. Bureau of Field Operations Personnel. Attending a community meeting, complete a report.
Is the process for completing PARs already spelled out someplace? This seems very detailed and to be included in this policy.
That's a good question.
And perhaps, I don't know if Acting Captain Fable knows whether, but there probably is already a process for doing it.
There is, ma'am. Yeah, there's a process already spelled out. I believe in the original CRO policy. Well, we actually have a direct policy for PAR forms. I can provide that as well.
So can we just say anybody attending a community meeting or public appearance shall complete and forward a public appearance report, PAR, in accordance with whatever the procedure is?
Yeah, that's a perfect idea because it's already written in detail. I think that's smart.
Yeah, I concur. I'm looking at public appearances, the policy, and it does seem to just be a direct copy. I'm going to highlight this entire section and take out any redundancies.
Yeah, and I think the point is that if you're going to do it, just, do it in accordance with whatever that section is.
Yeah. Okay.
The records maintenance is also spelled out in the policy. Okay, good.
Yes,
That's another
I think
way.
so.
Okay, great. So we can shorten all of that.
I hope so. That's what I need to check. I'll highlight it
Okay.
and go through both policies. Okay.
Excuse me. And the other reason that we will want to try to refer to existing policies and procedures is that if one of those policies or procedures changes, it would make it inconsistent with what we're saying in this policy, then we got a problem. We'd have to revise the policy as well. So whatever the current procedure is what we would always want them to follow.
Yeah,
Yep.
Makes sense. Let's see. I do know that this third part, presentations at community meetings, is not part of this public appearances policy. So let's take a look at this. Depending on assignment and classification, staff members and classification. Staff members may be required to make presentations at community meetings. OPD staff should consider hosting community meetings and other events in different areas of the beat. CROs are expected to make presentations on a regular basis. When presenting at a community meeting, the assigned CRO should do the following to ensure citywide consistency. Send an Outlook calendar invite to these various members. Should include beat priorities and CRO contact information. Topics should minimally include contact info, current beat priority and project updates, status, responses since last meeting, status of assessment or evaluation, identification of new priorities or projects if needed, community beat crime trends and crime rates in advance of the meeting if possible, including quarterly data for an area, shot spotter data, and aggregate crime data for each individual. Do we want each individual beat or just the beat in question?
Or the assigned beat?
Wherever the presentation is going to be, I guess.
And the
Because
question is, do we want to show sort of citywide? Do we want to tell the meeting attendees what's going on citywide, or
Right.
just for that individual?
right, and this is broken down by beat, so that's not the 5 areas, that's the 30 odd beats and their divisions.
Yeah, I think it should be the beats, individual, the assigned beat.
Would it be helpful for them to know what's going on? I mean, if your beat's in East Oakland, do you want the attendees to know what's going on in West Oakland or Montclair area or anything?
My thought is that community members are interested in what is happening in their specific community. I suppose we could broaden it to their area so that it's a little bit larger than just their beat, since someone could live in the border of a beat but really be interested in what's happening on the other side of the street.
Yeah, but crime does travel, and people can hear about something going on in West Oakland and be prepared about something may move in their direction. So there's some value about knowing what's happening citywide.
But I suppose my question is, if we're going to give them the citywide data, does it need to be broken down by individual beat, or should it be by area? Is that too granular, too granular for the community meeting?
I think if we're going to include any citywide beat, citywide information, it should be, a trend citywide, robberies have gone up, carjackings have gone up, et cetera. But I think the bulk of what folks will be most interested in is what's going on in their individual beat. And certainly it'd be useful if they, if that reflected a citywide trend.
So they are automatically doing community beat crime trends. So that's part of it. And so this would be in addition to things going on for that specific beat.
Right.
So it's community beat crime trends, etc.
Plus, yeah, quarterly data, shot spotter data,
Yeah.
and aggregate crime data for the city of Oakland.
Yeah.
See, summary of beat CRO's key activity, including but not limited to additional intelligence-based and crime prevention operations not covered in subdivision B. Oops. Not covered in. That are relevant to the neighborhood council. This may include surveillance operations, high visibility patrols, probation parole compliance checks, search warrants, violent crime investigations, domestic violence and child abuse interventions, and tow activity.
That's pretty complete. The only thing you might add is just an et cetera, because that's, there'll always be an additional operation.
I will say that from a public defender perspective, I don't like the idea of neighbors knowing when someone I know is knowing their neighbors are on probation or parole. I assume that OPD will handle the privacy concerns correctly. That's why I'm not talking too much about this. And miscellaneous agenda items.
Let me ask you this, excuse me, sorry. What do we envision when we talk about probation parole compliance checks? That means that the CRO is going to say that we completed 10 probation and parole compliance checks in the last 2 weeks or whatever.
And just so you guys know, that's not even with policy anymore. That's technically against our current policy. We don't do randomized parole compliance checks anymore.
Right. I guess you're right. OPD wouldn't. It would be probation going to go do that. And occasionally they may ask OPD to support or do something.
So we should just just knock that out.
Yeah, I think it should be out. I think the only thing that the citizen has a right to know is if somebody is, a sexual predator is on that list, that they can get that information themselves, over the internet, from the government if somebody is on that list. But I don't think it's anybody's business if somebody's down the street and is on parole or on probation.
Yeah, and I don't want to make one policy inconsistent with another either.
Yeah.
So we delete that language?
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay. The other stuff I think OPD knows how to handle and balance the privacy interests. So I think other stuff is okay.
I just went black screens. I don't know what happened.
No worries. I can tell you what's the rest of the list if you need some thoughts on it. Surveillance operations, high visibility patrols, search warrants, violent crime investigations, domestic violence and child abuse interventions, and tow activity, and miscellaneous agenda items. So there are announcements, other presentations, information and requested topics, or where this information can be found. Let's see, let me make sure this makes sense. Yes, consistency. So C starts to go into what what happens at the meeting, introduce yourself at the beginning of the meeting, explain the role of CROs if needed, required, or requested. And they are required to provide at the meeting crime statistics for the area and beats, updates on priorities and projects, including defined priority and project problem and goal. Yeah, status of each active priority or project, or for each priority or project flow since the last meeting or update, responses completed or logged by all priority or project partners since last meeting or update. So this is specifically what they're talking about at the meeting, as opposed to the information they are presenting on.
In the meeting.
Oh, okay. Call me
That
back.
makes sense,
All right, bye.
actually. That does not make as much sense. Oh, Lieutenant Fable just sent a message. Any questions before he needs to go by, I assume that's 11.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you for joining us, Captain Pebble.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay,
thank you, everyone. I appreciate your input. You have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Stay safe.
Okay, same.
Commissioner Shea.
yes,
So well, I'm not assuming. So CROs and at this stage, these are the sort of boots on the ground for this policy. Am I correct?
yes.
Okay. Well, then I would recommend that at every one of these meetings, of these public meetings, that they every meeting begin with maybe a 1 minute, minute and a half presentation, or repeating the objective of this policy. Community empowerment, and just a short 1 minute at every one of these public meetings. And that way, I mean, I learned a long time ago, repetition, practice makes perfect, and you also internalize something. So I don't see that anywhere here. Did I miss it, or?
No, that makes sense. Could you give me a 1-sentence line that you want them to say about what this policy envisions and their role?
Explain the goal.
I will in a minute, okay?
Okay.
Explain the goal of the community policing policy or something.
Yes, that's what I mean. And I can put something, let me work on it and I'll give it to you in a minute. We can continue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the highlight we'll come back to. See, where are we? CRO and neighborhood service coordinator interaction. I reworded the verbs and the manner in which the interactions are, because we don't have the authority over the neighborhood service coordinators. You'll see that both, I think, here and I think it was somewhere else. I can't remember. CROs and neighborhood service coordinators should collaborate prior to every neighborhood council meeting to review and discuss beat information, crime statistics, crime trends, priorities, and projects. Identification of current neighborhood concerns include problem properties and hot spots should be included. This is going to require the CROs to actively reach out to the neighborhood service coordinators unless they haven't already, since we can only direct CROs and not neighborhood service coordinators. And then finally, CROs should provide neighborhood service coordinators with the CRO's report prior to the meeting.
Good.
Any thoughts about this number 3, presentations at community meetings? Small group living room meetings, it was originally living room meetings. I put small group. I don't know why I don't like intimate meetings, which was the previous suggestion. I don't know why I don't like them. I mean, it may not be intimate. It may be very contentious. I'm not sure what it is. I don't want to say that it's going to be a particular type of meeting. So that's why I described it as small group meetings. They may not be. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that, but I put small group for now. So small group meetings are a specific type of community meeting. Like all community meetings, the goal of a small group meeting is to improve police community relations. Small group meetings employ specific criteria, such as the following: intimate setting or local facility, recommended by the assigned neighborhood service coordinator, such as a library or recreation center. Small group size, no more than 20 participants. Small group meetings are generally attended by area command staff, supervisors, and officers. Neighborhood service coordinator should be invited when possible. However, small group meetings should not replace neighborhood council meetings. For meetings that may deal with recent or serious violent incidents in the community, the department should consider requesting a neutral facilitator, including but not limited to a restorative justice facilitator, a representative from the Department of Violence Prevention, a neighborhood law corps attorney, or a member of the community.
Who coordinates the neighborhood law corps program? Do we have one here in Oakland?
City attorney.
City attorney.
The city attorneys, okay.
Yeah.
Seems somehow we should put up in the other paragraph above, safety and trust in your small groups meeting, so that folks can know that everybody who comes ought to have a sense of being, safe and not intimidated.
You want it there or separate entries? Small group size, no more than 20 participants, so that participants can feel safe or something, or you want a separate bullet?
Small group meetings are specific type.
I think it's separate, because even in a small group, it might not be the safest.
Yeah.
How do we get, what is that interest? What is that criteria?
Yeah, how to put it into words.
What's your thought, Reggie? What's your thought, Reggie?
My thought is that that these meetings ought to be designed where trust and safety are considered as paramount, or the paramount consideration.
What is the thing that might happen that you are worried about?
This is what I'm worried about. And I'm sorry, I can't put it into words succinctly, but people come to a neighborhood meeting and the person who is coordinating the neighborhood meeting actually works for the gang member and is there to see who talks. The people in the neighborhood knows who's related to whom. And so they're not coming to that meeting. Now, I want you guys to know this actually happens.
Yeah.
It actually happens. So in your planning your small group, this should be a concern, that safety and trust is a concern for everybody involved. That's all I'm trying to say. I want to accuse anybody of anything, but I just think we ought to have that in our mind when you're setting up your small meeting.
No, I think that's an excellent point, because there's some neighborhood councils that don't even announce the location of where they're holding their meeting until just before the meeting itself.
Oh, yeah.
Because of retaliation. So that's real. And maybe we should use some of what you just said to put that in in C, safety and trust should be paramount in the planning of the small group meetings. Because I foresee that there'll be any number of meetings that can and should be held, at the Eastmont Station. Because the last thing that, folks want to see is a bunch of OPD cars parked in front of their house.
They could get stitches.
Yes, indeed. So how does that sound?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I just think we have an obligation to say that
Yeah.
we are writing a policy and we're aware of that. There are some risk involved being
Yeah.
community involved people. And we recognize that we're not so distant from you that we don't know that you're taking a chance, you're taking a risk.
Yep.
And so Jesse did a consideration of neighborhood dynamics to maximize trust and safety. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point, Reggie. And it's something that can be put out to folks. So you don't have to have a meeting there at your house or even at the local church. We can go to the library. We can go to here, we can go there, we can go to Eastmont, and we can have it done. We can have it there, in a neutral place away from the neighborhood, so that, the people that attend the meeting are really people that are interested in meeting with OPD.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Jesse, to put it up there.
When holding a small group meeting, the department shall consider neighborhood dynamics to ensure the safety of all participants and to maximize to maximize trust.
Safety and trust. I don't think honest got to be in there. I'm assuming everybody's
Okay,
honest.
so the safety of all participants. And so what's the trust part of it?
And the building of trust.
Yes, the trust is essential because the whole purpose of the foundation of the small group meeting or the community meeting, that I trust my neighbor trusts me, we're after the same goal. And guess what? We trust the police. We trust the CRO. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's where we're going with this.
Yeah, and that I really see an impact if in fact there's command staff there as well. So you can end that with, what do you think about safety of all participants and the building of trust?
Yes, and the department. Thank you for putting the department in there. Thank you.
Department shall consider new to ensure safety of all participants and trust.
When holding a small group, the department shall consider neighborhood dynamics to ensure the safety of all participants and maximize the trust between community members and the department.
And I say, and with the department, to emphasize that we're also looking for intra-group trust between neighbors and them with the department.
Exactly. Precisely.
And I'll take out. Let's see here. Good point. Ariana, you got that sentence?
Sorry, I'm getting ready to post it now on chat.
Okay.
Let's see. Right, do hit paste. Is it there? Is it on chat?
I see it, Mariel.
Okay, thank you. So I just put down community policing is a partnership between the OPD, the Oakland Police Department, and the neighborhoods it serves. The direct goal is the empowerment of neighborhoods and the community's interest in partnering with Oakland Police Department to create safe and equitable neighborhoods. And then I believe that, at every one of these meetings that could just be expanded on, or maybe, cut down a little bit. But if we just, that general sentiment gets put out at every one of the meetings, I think that will, get the idea across to folks that this is what the vision and the purpose is of this policy.
So how about if we say, explain that the goal of community policing is to create a partnership between OPD. Explain that the goal of community policing is to create a partnership between OPD and the neighborhoods it serves. That the direct goal is empowerment of neighborhoods. In the community's interests. And partner with OPD. Yeah.
There's this transition here I'll work on.
Yeah.
The word equitable, I'm just assuming you're saying a balance of power between the department and the community. That's what you mean by equitable?
Yes, I actually wanted to say, where it's driven by community, but I ran out of time.
You did a great job in the time that you had. And so we just want to kind of give them general, they can say this without basically necessarily saying you got to read the script at every time. So, but hopefully that's enough for if they do just take this and say it at every meeting, it's perfect. But so they're going to explain that the goal of community policing is to create a partnership between I think we say OPD. You don't need to say the OPD, between OPD and the neighborhoods it serves. The primary goal, is the empowerment of neighborhoods and the community's interests in partnering with OPD. The primary goal is the empowerment of neighborhoods through partnership with OPD. So they want empowerment of the neighborhoods through. You don't like that?
I mean, I don't think that the main community empowerment piece is through partnership with OPD. I think OPD supports the community empowerment goals through its partnership, in that the community takes the lead forward and asks OPD for assistance when it needs to. So I suppose if it's the primary goal is the empowerment of neighborhoods, comma, and working with OPD and partnering with OPD to create safe and equitable neighborhoods. So two separate goals.
Yeah.
Okay. The primary goals are the empowerment of neighborhoods. Okay, the empowerment of neighborhoods, and two,
fostering a partnership with OPD to create safe and equitable neighborhoods.
Well, I think we ought to put equitable in front of partnership.
Interesting.
An equitable partnership.
Yes, with OPD. So that's what I thought Mariano was after, about equitable, meaning a balance of power, not necessarily fairness, but a balance of power. Another power in that, it's not just what you think the problem is, OPD, is what we think the problem is. It's not what you think the best solution is. You got to consider what we think the best solution happens to be to respond to the situation.
Yeah.
We can use the language of 79235 instead of equitable. We say peer level. So it's clear that that OPD and the community, in terms of creating safe neighborhoods is on a peer level.
Yeah.
Good
Is that what you're
morning.
driving
I
at, Mark
apologize.
Contreras?
Good morning, Pastor Jackie.
I passed Jack.
Good morning. I'm sorry. This particular meeting is with every other church meeting, but I was going to say, if you're going to add, whether it is equitable or peer level, add it to the first sentence, peer level. Explain that the goal of community policing is to create a peer level partnership between OPD and the neighborhood it serves.
Perfect.
The primary goals are the empowerment of neighborhoods and 2, fostering, take out peer level partnership because you said that already. And we have to come up with another word that speaks to, and I would think it would be fostering. The second goal would be to fostering, I'm suggesting safe and equitable neighborhoods. Because you've already spoken to the relationship with OPD. And then if need be, Jesse, add a phrase that lifts up that it is to be community led or with the support of OPD, something that speaks to that. But you've dealt with the peer level partnership, and the first part of it is the primary goal. And then at this point, the other 2 are outcomes. Just my humble suggestion.
Teach, my sister, teach. Yes.
I just love it.
Yes, and about the community-led or community-driven. Yes, I love that part.
Yeah.
Can I say too, for parallelism, the primary goals are empowering neighborhoods and fostering. So we got empowering and fostering.
The only addition I would add somewhere is I think the sentence or the idea would do well to have something that speaks to voice, because the empowerment does not necessarily come strictly from a peer level partnership. It's the idea that the community is able to speak and they are able to voice their opinions and their thoughts on how they feel policing and achieving safety and equity, what that looks like in their neighborhood. And as we pointed out, it will look different depending on what neighborhood you are from. So if there's a way to add voice somewhere in there, I think that would be helpful.
So I believe that, so the general idea, can you imagine at every one of these public meetings, this begins the meeting, right? And so now the CRO, whoever opens up this meeting, 2-3 times of repeating this, they have to be able to internalize this now, right? This policy and the vision and the purpose. So that is what the whole intention of this is. We understand it. We know what we want, but now, the buy-in is by, the boots on the ground folks, which are the CROs.
Okay, this is good. The OPD is here to support. Oh, you put another one. Explain that the goal of community policing is to create a peer level partnership between OPD and the neighborhoods it serves. OPD is here to support community-led empowerment and support community-led empowerment and to support a safe support. Or do you want another dot? Another. OPD is here to support community-led efforts to empower neighborhoods, and foster safe. And I thought we were putting equitable someplace else. Oh no, safe and equitable neighborhoods. Okay.
I understand equitable to mean that the Hill neighborhood doesn't have more power than the Flatland neighborhood. But I was just thinking the balance of power between the department and the neighborhood, but I see both now, and I yield to equitable neighborhoods make sense.
And I would go even further, not just the loudest voice in the room of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, explain that the goal of community policing is to create a peer level partnership. So I'm your CRO and I'm standing up and I'm making this presentation. I'm going to say at the outset, just want to remind you that the goal of community policing is to create a peer level partnership between OPD and the neighborhoods it serves. And I want to just reassure you that OPD is here to support community-led efforts to empower neighborhoods. And we want to foster a safe and equitable neighborhood. Okay.
As Mariana said, that would be great to hear that at every community meeting at the beginning.
Okay. I think that's the community meeting section.
Mhm. Good job.
Good work. So that is the second run through what a much more finalized version of this document. I am still waiting to hear back from policies, Lieutenant Turner and OPD's policies and procedures unit about what, if any, suggestions they may have. And I think we're going to work on shortening this thing up as much as we can. We're on page 13. Maybe we can, maybe we can't.
And can I say, I'm sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, not at all. Go ahead.
You know, I was just going to say that at the beginning of the policy, that I'm trying to work on synthesizing what we say at the beginning of the policy, because we have a lot of paragraphs that say essentially the same thing, and we say it in about 10 different ways. So what I've been doing is trying to see if we can synthesize it and make it shorter and readable, and so that people don't get bogged down in what we're saying. And I'm hoping too that I can. I'd sort of like to combine at least the community policing as well as police department mission, vision and goals, and as well as community policing and problem solving, and even purpose or something perhaps. So because we're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and we can get into the meat of the policy earlier on. And so I'd like to see, I'm going to take a hand at trying to redo that to see whether we'll miss anything by taking out some of the repetition and the redundancy. We have some excellent points and excellent language, but I think that we can get to the meat of our policy long before we get to the meat of the policy the way it's structured right now. So I'm hoping that I will finish that. I can finish that this weekend. I was working on it last night, and I think I have some good stuff. And it just again, it's a little bit. It definitely will be short. I'd like for it to be shorter, and get to the policy and the goals, and even in terms when we talk about the purpose of this. And is it a directive or policy? What is it? I think we say the purpose of this directive at some point under purpose. Okay, so
It'll be a general order.
Okay, so it will be the purpose of this general order right there. The purpose of this general order. Okay, and even with respect to purpose, can I there? I'm thinking as we look at that. Do we need to, we want to refer to resolution 79235 and resolution 85149. Do we, I'm looking at trying to put all those references in one bullet point and just summarize it, for example. Yeah, so it's those, and then we refer to the resolutions again in another bullet point. That further down the next page, we refer again to the resolutions and everything. So I'm just trying to, again, just try to shorten things and try to make sure that we make the point one time and capture the essence of what we're trying to say.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Just trying to synthesize within the sections is hard, and maybe I've been doing it wrong and needing to look a little. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, great. Because it's good. Everything is there. I mean, everything we have is there, and it's good. But I think that we can play with that, those early sections, as I said, to get into the meat of our directive.
And we'll knock off about half a page, taking out all that stuff about public appearance reports.
Yeah, exactly. At least a half a page.
Okay, it's 11:27. I want to be mindful of time, as always. I think so. We will be submitting. I think what did Rania say? We're slated for the May 26th meeting for presentation, which means we need to get the materials in by the 20th. I'd propose one more run through on May 14th, which is it May 14th? Yeah, May 14th. It could be a very short meeting. It could be or significantly shorter, where we just run through, here it is, any glaring errors or things that need to be fixed. And that, I think, will be the last one.
Yeah, and I think too that I can have, I sort of can have sort of like the redraft. I run it through to Jesse, Jose, and to Jesse, Jose, and Rudy first in terms of a redraft, and then Jesse can present the redraft of the first part. It can disseminate it out to everybody in advance. Hopefully we can get it done by the end of next week, or certainly by Monday the 9th.
Yeah.
So you'll have it. But otherwise, I think, gosh, I can't believe that we are at the end of this the way we have it. It's been absolutely wonderful.
We've been working on this since August.
Yeah. But you
Been
know,
8 months.
it looks good. It is a great looking policy, and great minds have come together to fashion something that is workable, and we should be very, very proud of what we've done. So,
It looks wonderful.
yeah, it's been great working with everybody, even though Reggie harassed me a lot throughout this whole process.
The victim here, Judge. I am the victim here, Judge.
This balance of power is very complicated.
Remember the word equitable.
That is great. It's been absolutely wonderful. It really has been. So, okay.
All right, I'm going to shut it down. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
You guys.
Okay.
Be safe.
All right.
Have a great
And
weekend.
Jesse and Jose, I'll ask you guys a couple of questions. Okay. Everybody else, I'll talk with you